one thing that helped me a lot in my life was when I realized that sex is a social construct, or at least that's how I think of it, right? And so it's like a lot of people categorize it weird. I think, well, it's not weird, but it's easy to see why they do it. However, it's very helpful not to. So it's like you categorize a lot of things you do with other humans. It's like, oh, I play Monopoly. Oh, I play video games. I play soccer. I eat dinner with other humans. I work with other humans. At work. And it's like, oh, but then there's this huge ultimate thing of sex, which is like in its entire different universe. And it's like this really intense, serious thing, and it's like, no, like that's such a, let me think of the right word. That's such an unhelpful way to think about it, I think. So like, rather than think about it like that, it's just another layer. There's a certain amount of intimacy involved in sharing a meal with someone. There's a certain amount of intimacy involved in holding hands with someone. Sex is merely exists at the most intimate end of the spectrum of things that we can do with other humans, right? And so when you think about it like that, well, it's not so disconnected from just holding hands or from sharing a hug or telling a very honest story or something like that, right? Now, what do you think about that? I'm sure that you have some thoughts about that. What's your immediate take on that viewpoint?
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful viewpoint. I mean, it is so woven into everything we do. Our whole reality is made out of sex, even
Yeah, yeah.
separation that we create through like, oh my God, don't talk about my parents having sex. Like, that's disgusting. It's like, hello, that's where you came from. You literally shot out of your dad's penis into your mom's vagina, grew inside of her body,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you were fully encompassed by her vagina while being born, unless you were born C-section like me. Then,
Hmm.
if you were breastfed, you were suckling on her breast. Like, the whole thing is this very innocently erotic experience. Like, erotic
Absolutely.
innocence, I think, is kind of the key to what you're speaking to here. Is like, everything is reality making love to itself. Like, we are
Yes.
one consciousness fractaling out into infinite permutations of this one consciousness, making love to all of existence all the time. And so, sex can be like a really deep, delicious dance with someone, or like playing music together, or rolling around in the grass. Like, there's so many ways that this energy can like permeate what we're doing. And yeah, I do think it's just a spectrum of intimacy, but having sex is not this like separate compartmentalized thing like we've framed
Hmm.
it to be. It's very silly that we've done that, because we
Yeah.
all the one thing we all have in common is that we all arrived here, through sex. Even if we were, even if that was done in a lab, it's still the connecting of sperm and egg. We all got here through that combining of masculine and feminine energy. And it's the thing that connects all of us. So it's so silly to think like, oh, I've got to keep this like really private, hidden thing, as if nobody else is also doing it. It's yeah, it's
Absolutely.
pretty hilarious.
As I like to say in my work, I say, everything we do, even if we don't mean for it to be, and even if we're trying to exclude ourselves from it, it is all still one big mating dance. Everything we do, every conversation we're having, it doesn't matter who you're having it with, whether you like it or not. The conversation you have with your mom over at dinner is still a part of that incredible human mating dance. It's our evolutionary mandate, right? From a human behavior perspective. Um, Everything is sort of hinges, you could say everything hinges on survival, but the survival of the species hinges on sex and our ability to replace ourselves, right? And to me, that's very, very cool and very beautiful to know that it's so overarching in everything that we do, right? I think that's super, super cool. I have another question for you here. Okay, at one point in your website, I was reading, and I read you have some really good content on your website, but you mentioned how, and I don't remember exactly what you said, but you mentioned how this doesn't just involve men's sexuality. It spills over into other areas of life too, these problems. And the question I wanted to ask you, and what I'd like to hear you talk about a little bit, is, are these types of problems, so like whether we're talking about sexual dysfunction or, performance anxiety, or even not quite understanding your own relationship with yourself in regards to sex or whatever, these kind of things, whatever the issue is, um, obviously men probably notice, well, it does hurt my experience when I try to be intimate, when I'm trying to have sex. But do you think that this is hurting men's ability to even find opportunities to engage in sex with partners?
What specifically are you asking, if it hurts their opportunity to?
Yeah. So, for example, do you think this is impacting a man's ability even to, find willing participants, like find dates, find people who are attracted to him, the whole process, like before he even meets someone, is this
Mhm.
so permeating that, and I have a feeling that the answer is yes. And I kind of believe the answer is yes, but I want to hear you talk about it because you probably know a little bit more about this specifically than I do. But this idea that these challenges exist, in the sexual arena, do you
Mhm.
think that they carry over even when the man's just trying to date, when it not that isn't even relating to sex?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think when we don't have confidence in ourselves, when we feel disconnected from our sexuality or not empowered in it, it absolutely seeps into everything. I mean, one of my courses is called Vital Confidence,
Mhm.
because our confidence and our sexuality are so deeply connected. I see
Yeah,
my
yeah,
clients all the time as they come into deeper relationship with their sexuality, start getting promotions or leave the job they hate and start
yeah.
that business they wanted to start. Even just being able to talk to women that they would never have the confidence to otherwise, just because they've been diving into their self-pleasure practice, they've been working through some of these sexual wounds. And I think also, what's important to remember is everyone has some sort of insecurity or issue with their sexuality at some point. Like
For
nobody is just
sure.
totally smooth sailing, but we don't talk about it so much. So what's important to realize is that we're not alone. And in
Mhm.
these courses I teach, I take men as a group to talk through this together. And it's amazing to see, how many of them are like, wow, I'm right there with you, brother. Like I've also been there. I also experienced that. And when you can see we're not alone, it becomes this thing that's not like stuffed away in the shadows in this shameful place, but we just see it as like, oh yeah, nobody taught us how to do this. We were taught how to walk, how to talk, how to ride a bike, how to drive. We weren't expected to just know how to do those things, but then
Mhm.
somehow we're just expected to know how to do sex. And so I think yeah, when there's this feeling that we don't know how to work with our sexual energy, or even like, you know, one of my one of my students said to me something the other day about, um, I asked, he was upset about somebody turning him down, and I asked if he was still working with his self-pleasure practice. And he said, well, yeah, but it's like just me and my penis. Like it's not that exciting. And I said, well, how is somebody else supposed to be excited about you and your penis if you're not excited about that? Like you
Mhm.
need to be excited about this relationship that you have with your sexual energy if you want to magnetize that from somebody else, right? If we're like, oh, I'm boring, I'm uninteresting, I'm unworthy, it's going to be really hard for somebody else to get excited about that. So we have to cultivate that within first. And
Yeah.
then it's palpable, it's magnetic. People can feel that.
Absolutely. That's actually really, really insightful and super, super true. And that speaks to many things in life. That speaks to even forming friendships. Like, you're like, oh, no,
Mhm.
nobody likes me. I'm just lonely all the time, blah, blah. It's like, well, no wonder you don't have any friends, kind of like in a nicer way. But it's like, learning to love yourself is so vitally important to that process, no matter what you're trying to do. I love it. That's awesome.
It
Um,
is, and speaking to that, I just want to say one more point on that. When your cup is full, when you're filling your own cup, it's overflowing, and it's
mhm.
not this like, oh, I'm like having this grabby, needy energy because I need you to fill my cup and validate me. And this is one of the most repelling things that I see people do in relationship when they are looking for that other person to validate that they are lovable, worthy, desirable. And men ask me all the time, like, what's the biggest thing that repels women? It is that needy, grabby energy of like, I'm trying to
Yeah.
get you. I'm so
Mhm.
horny. I don't know how to fill my own cup and I'm trying to get sex from you. We feel that so intensely. And we're like, no, 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 no.
Absolutely, yeah.
Get those tentacles away. And so when you're filling your
Yeah.
and you're self-satiated, you're magnetizing, you're radiant. Like people
Mhm.
feel that and they're drawn to it rather than feeling like there's something that you need from them.
And it's really rare too, actually, to find someone who's really at peace with themselves. It's very attractive and it's very rare. And people are drawn to it. That's very, very powerful. Actually, that's exactly the alpha mindset. Not coming from a validational deficit. You have to come, you have to come into the equation self-validated and
Mhm.
ready to provide value for other people. It's like, I'm going to make your life better. I'm an asset. I'm going to bring value. It's not, I'm going to bring a deficit that you have to fix, right? Which is a very repelling thing. And that goes back to our survival, even. It's a survival instinct. Women know better than to engage with men like that because they know that those men are a liability in a survival instinct capacity, right? So from an evolutionary psychology perspective, like that's what I tell my clients is it's like women inherently know. And like you said, even if you don't talk about it, they sense the energy. Women are very, very good at it. They're very, very good at picking up on that. And for good reason. Eons of evolutionary success have taught them to be good at it. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um,
Right. And it doesn't
yeah,
mean
yeah.
you've got to like have it all figured out. We never arrive
Mm-mm.
at the place of like, great, I'm healed, I'm perfect. But it's coming from a place of authenticity and like you are willing to love yourself and to show up to do that work without expecting someone to do it for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.